Hey, Easton. How are you?
Hey, how are you? Are you feeling okay today? Or
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I just I almost choked on my protein bar that I was eating. So I'm like trying to get Zoom up and I'm like, I guess I took too big of a bite, and all of a sudden I was like, what a mess. Ugh. Let me take another. All right. Hi, Mario. Hi, Ray. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I wonder if people have forgotten that it's Wednesday. Doesn't feel like a Wednesday to me. Good morning, Peyton. Good morning, Ashley. Good morning, Torin. Good morning, Vincent. Good morning, Zion. Good morning, Alejandro. Good morning, Haley. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes and then we are going to get started. Since so many of you are here, I'm going to go ahead and give you the link to the Nearpod so you can go ahead and get logged in. Ooh, holy moly. Holy moly, friends. All right. Good morning, Yulissa. Good morning, Bennett. Again, here is the Nearpod link. Please go ahead and sign in so that we've got a few people missing, some friends that we normally have. So we're waiting to see if they show up for another couple minutes, but then we have to get started. I just want to remind you that if you did not finish your project, that you should complete it sooner rather than later. You can still turn it in. Let me double check in here to make sure that it is available for, yes. So you should be able to submit it still. So please do so that you can get a grade that's not a 50, right? Okay. So I would suggest that you do that sooner rather than later, because we do need to move on to that second paper, okay? Has anybody made some decisions or would like some guidance on what they might want to write their paper about? Nobody has any idea yet? No, that is not an option. Remember, it has to be from that list that is on the document. Because 21 Chump Street is only a one act, okay? So it has to be from that list that's on the so it's in the 1116 to 1120 folder. Okay, so we have, all right, so Zion has chosen. All right, good. So I'm going to tell you that I need you to have your decision by Friday, because then you're going to have the weekend to watch your play. And so on Friday, I'm going to ask you to tell me what play it is that you are going to write your presentation on. Okay. Does that make sense? So you need to be able to tell me on Friday, and then your homework is going to, over the weekend, is going to be to watch the play. Questions about that? Okay, is everybody clear on that? So by Friday, you need to know what play you're writing about from that list. Okay, a couple of people know. All right, okay, so just keep that in your mind. Then over the weekend, you're gonna need to write or to watch your play, because next Tuesday, we're gonna have a draft day, so that you can either write your first draft with me, or you will be able to have me look at a draft if you have one ready. Make sense? So again, here's the Nearpod. I think we have like one person who is missing from the Nearpod. Alejandro, Ashley Bennett. Easton, I don't see you in the Nearpod. Haley, Mario, Peyton, Ray, Torin, Vincent, Elissa, Zion. I don't see you in the Nearpod. So if the two of you can get into the Nearpod, please. Okay, so today we're going to talk about realism. And this is going to sort of kick off what most of you will identify as modern theater, okay? Ignore this slide because we're not doing journals anymore. So we're going to go through sort of four things. We're going to talk about sentimental comedy and why it was important. We're going to talk about romanticism and what the rules of romanticism were. Now, you'll remember we've already sort of talked about that a little bit in our previous session when we talked about German theater, right? So you already know a little bit about romanticism. Giselle, here is the Nearpod for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about romanticism, and then I'll show you how that leads to realism. We're going to talk about the three big names in early realism, which are Henrik Ibsen, Anton Chekhov, and August Strindberg. And then you will have an exit ticket for today, just like normal. Okay. So, sentimental comedy. Mario, why don't you read this slide for us, please?
What is sentimental comedy? Number one, not written to make the audience laugh, but rather to make them cry. Number two, based on philosophy that said man was inherently good at theater, could help prevent them from being led down the wrong path. Number three, featured middle class couples and often centered around romance. Number four, characters are very clearly good or evil, no ambiguity. Number five, plots usually contained a mystery to be solved.
Good. Okay. So these are plays that were written to teach a lesson. And they were usually written about the middle class and they were written for the middle class. Okay. So the audience that they're targeting are the middle class. And all the characters are very obviously good or bad. So we don't have any of those gray area characters where it's not 100, you're not 100% sure, what side they're on. No, this is very obvious, like who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. Okay. And they often had some sort of mystery element. Okay. So we're going to watch a little example. So go ahead and hit play. This is just 2 minutes long, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, let me know when you are done. Okay, most of you are. Okay, those of you who are getting here late, remember today's Wednesday, so we started class 15 minutes ago, okay? So there's the Nearpod, please log in. Okay, so you should be done. Okay, so we see there basically all the stuff that we were talking about, right? It is not meant to be funny, right? It's supposed to be sad. We have the main character who is good and he is led astray by an evil woman, right? He is a member of the middle class. Now, we don't really see romance here, okay? Characters are clearly good or evil, and there's not really a mystery. When you read it, there's kind of this idea that, like, why is that the servants are trying to figure out a way to like get rid of Millwood because they aren't evil and they know that she is, okay? But pretty clear, follows all those rules for the most part, right? And like he said, this became so popular, it became like a tradition where the apprentices would get sent to watch this just to, remind them like, hey, don't rob and kill your boss. That's not a good thing to do. What do you guys think about it? This is The London Merchant, by the way, just in case you're interested in the play. Sounds interesting. I think it's really funny that it became like the play to send people to like every year, essentially. Okay. So, romanticism. Now like I said, we talked about this a little bit our previous lesson with Germany, okay? So, some of the main components of romanticism. Who would like to read this slide for us? Any volunteers? Okay, go ahead, Mario. Thank you.
Main components of romanticism. Number one, individual who wants to lead their own life or follow their own path. Number two, many different locations, most of which are exotic places the audiences could only dream of. Number three, passionate characters and romantic storylines. Number four, use of proscenium stage to do multiple backgrounds each play, enabling the characters to go from country to country. Number five, beautiful costumes and larger than life acting styles in large theaters.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so what does this remind you of? What other theater or type of theater have we talked about where we had lots of different locations, multiple, going from country to country? France? Okay, so France was about neoclassicism, right? So they had to stay, they were following the unities of time, place, and action, right? So in France, they actually wanted everything to take place over the course of a short period of time in one location, right? But what about right before France? Some of this is very similar to the Italian. We've got two things that I'm thinking of. Okay, so Zion says British theater. Who wrote that kind of theater? Where we went from lots of countries, we followed characters from into lots of different places. I guarantee all of you know him. Ah, there we are. Shakespeare. Yes. Okay. So Shakespeare was the first person who really made that kind of theater popular, where we had these characters, often very romantic, very passionate characters. Okay. What other country have we talked about where they had very passionate characters and these plays that went all over the place? I talked about how we talked about cape and sword comedy. They wrote like 35,000 plays. Yeah. Zion, what country is he from? Do you remember? Yes, Spanish theater. All right. Yes. Okay. So we're starting to get into this concept, this idea of characters who are thinking with their hearts. They're doing what they want, what they feel like they're supposed to do, what they're driven to do. Okay. They're getting rid of the unities of time, place, and action. One of the most popular things from the Romantic period, a book I'm going to put it in the chat. I bet you all know it. The Three Musketeers. Right? By Alexandre Dumas, written in 1844. Okay. So this is what they call a swashbuckler. So we have these characters that, yeah, they're very passionate. They're very, they're often like soldiers. They fight. Beautiful costumes. We go all over the countryside, multiple countries. They're protecting somebody, or they're protecting the people, or they're protecting the king or their country. All right. Do you still see stuff like this today? Yes. Yeah, for sure. Right. What's some examples that you can think of from today? Disney princesses. Okay. Yep. What else? Yeah, I was saying, can you think of, I'll put it in the chat too, modern examples of romanticism? We take these 5 ideas. Hallmark movies, yeah. Hallmark movies are a pretty good example, right? Some of them aren't exotic, but they have, instead of this exotic idea, Hallmark movies, for the most part, have kind of, especially the Christmas ones, right? They have this like idealized small town. That might not be considered exotic, but what else? I have a feeling that a lot of you are working on something right now. So I'm going to start calling on people. Okay, so using these 5 things, I'm closing my eyes, I'm wiggling the mouse. It didn't land on the person. I'm closing my eyes, I'm wiggling the mouse. Miss Lopez, tell me what you think a modern example of romanticism might be based on these 5 elements.
Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. Okay, good. So, yes, good example. Okay. So, how do we get then to realism? Basically, what's going to happen is that these components are done so much that people start to get, I don't want to say tired of it, but it becomes a cliche, right? So we have these people who are going to start writing a completely new thing. And the first one that we're going to talk about is a man by the name of Henrik Ibsen. And yes, my kitty, Henrik, is named after him. Maybe if we have time, I will find a picture of Henrik and I will show you him. I think you've seen him though, because he's the one who always used to sit by me in the window when I was working from home. Okay, so Henrik Ibsen. Let's see. Torin, can you read this slide for us?
Ibsen's life spent much of his life outside Norway. He said he could not write in his homeland. Started writing plays about people in trouble. This was shocking. Contained plot what?
Plot
Plot
lines?
lines that people did not normally talk about openly.
Yes. Okay. So Ibsen's plays are going to talk about things like people who are in unhappy marriages. They're going to talk about divorce. They're going to talk about people who drink too much. They're going to talk about like all of these topics that normally had been not part of entertainment at all. Okay. So that's what he starts writing about. Now he is from Norway, so he's a Norwegian, right? But yeah, he starts writing plays about people who are real, who could be real people. And they have real problems that were happening then. And a lot of them are still happening today, right? So his storylines are very compelling. He challenges a lot of ideas about marriage. Like I said, you have people who like talk about being in an unhappy marriage. You have people who want to get divorced. You have people who, are messing with other people's marriages. Okay. And one of his biggest things is that he emphasizes this idea that problems are not, can't always be solved with money. So even though a lot of the people in his plays are fairly well off, they still have all of these issues. They still, you know, aren't really in love, or their kids are horrible, or all of the above. Okay, the next person we're going to talk about is August Strindberg. Okay. Who would like to read this slide? Any volunteers before I pick somebody? Ray, can you read it for us?
Born in Sweden,
That's okay.
Sweden had doubts of extreme paranoia, probably from all the lead poisoning. Married into money, was married 3 different times. Wasn't a fan of women. First found success in naturalist plays.
Good. Yeah, so Strindberg was an alchemist. Has anybody ever heard of that before? I'm going to put it in the chat. Okay, it's partially it there's some science to it. Yeah. Does anybody know what else they were doing? Science and nature. Yeah. His primary thing was, and a lot of alchemists were doing this, was that they wanted to try to turn, or they thought that it would be possible to turn sulfur into gold. As a result of his obsession with these experiments, he had either already had mental problems and the lead poisoning didn't help. No, it's not, Ray. Or if it was, money would be non-existent, right? That would be exciting though. But yeah, so here's an article about it if you guys are interested in it. It's very interesting. Like the concept, you can kind of almost see like why they thought this, right? But okay, so he's doing these experiments so much that he essentially gives himself lead poisoning. So if he wasn't already like having mental problems, he definitely did then, right? Because lead poisoning is really intense. And so as a result, he gets really paranoid. He starts he wrote letters to one of his wives accusing her of cheating on him with their nanny. Yeah, like he's an interesting individual. So he does not really like women. And he first finds success with naturalist plays. Now, naturalism, which I'm going to put in the chat, is an extreme form of realism, where they said that, you know, if you were going to say that what you were putting on stage was real, then it should be staged realistically, which means stuff like, you know, when we're really talking in a group, we might have our backs to people. So maybe you would have your back to the audience. Or you know, maybe if you were supposed to be eating during a scene, then you really had to eat the whole time, or whatever it is, right? So he first finds success with that, and then he turns to realism. So what did he do? What did he do to the theater? Well, first of all, he says that theater should be a mirror to life so that the audience can recognize themselves in it. So think about that for a second. It should be a mirror to life. And the next thing is that he writes very strong characters. He starts using very early psychology to examine why they do what they do. And his female characters, he wanted to use female characters to represent the evilness of women, right? Ooh, evil. So his plays are a hoot. His like the letters that he wrote are sometimes funny and sometimes disturbing. He and August Strindberg, or he and Henrik Ibsen, I can't remember, did I edit that out of this one? Because I edited this for you guys from what I gave to the 10th graders. He and August Strindberg and Henrik Ibsen hated each other. It's not crude so much as dark, for sure. But they hated each other. And I mean, like, would write letters, would talk about each other, would say that, like, the other person was, like, the worst writer in the world. Ibsen actually paid to have a portrait of Strindberg, like, painted, and he hung it above his desk and said that he wanted to look into the face of insanity every day. Strindberg accused Ibsen of writing him into Ibsen's plays. Like, basically, Strindberg said that all the villains of Ibsen's plays were him. I mean, yeah, they did not like each other at all. So those two are like battling it out. They're writing these things. And then meanwhile, over in Russia, minding his own business is Anton Chekhov. So this is our third. We call these people the three fathers of realism, which I will also put in the chat. But yeah, so in Russia, minding his own business, actually working as a doctor, is Anton Chekhov. So we're going to watch this. Oh, and it didn't work. Let me get the video real quick for y'all.
Hey guys, what's up? So I am super into this website right now. It's Generation Genius. And they cover all the science standards for every state. But what I love about this website.
Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen and we will watch this together.
Your pickles and bites of brown bread ready, because today we're exploring Anton Chekhov, the Moscow Art Theater, in the early years of Russian modernism. That means laughter and tears and vodka. Lots of vodka. Also, who is gonna pay the mortgage? Lights up. Early Russian drama looked a lot like the early years of theater in France, Germany, or Italy. There were mystery plays and folk comedies that eventually gave way to neoclassical scholastic plays. Although in Russia, a bunch of the neoclassical plays were specifically anti-Napoleon dramas, so that's a new twist, I guess. Empress Catherine the Great allowed the first professional theater to open in St. Petersburg in the mid-1700s. She even wrote a bunch of not-so-great comedies and her own version of The Merry Wives of Windsor, where all the characters got Russian names. She described her own work as a free but feeble adaptation. Russia's dramatic literary tradition didn't really start until Romanticism took over, led by Alexander Pushkin and Mikhail Lermontov, though their works went unproduced for years because of censorship. And then Alexei Tolstoy, a distant relative of Lev, aka Leo Tolstoy, wrote a trilogy of plays about Ivan the Terrible that pretty much closed the not very thick book on Russian romantic theater. It's the only not very thick Russian book that has ever existed. But fun fact, for a country so state-controlled and censorship-heavy, realism came to Russia pretty early. Examples include Ivan Turgenev's melancholy 1850s comedy A Month in the Country, about affairs on a rural estate, and Alexander Ostrovsky's middle-class comedies and dramas. A.F. Pisemski's A Bitter Fate even followed Zola's naturalistic precepts a decade before Zola wrote them. Nikolai Gogol and Leo Tolstoy wrote more controversial plays. Gogol's was a farcical look at provincial corruption, The Government Inspector, and Tolstoy's a baby-murdering classic, The Power of Darkness, which we looked at in our episode on French naturalism. But censorship meant that these plays sometimes waited decades before being produced. Into this world arrived Anton Chekhov, Russia's greatest playwright and a man who really knew his way around a samovar. Chekhov was born in 1860. His paternal grandfather had been a serf. Chekhov trained as a doctor, and though he continued to practice medicine, he devoted himself to literature, mostly as a short story writer at first. Just as he finished medical school, he developed tuberculosis, but he was financially responsible for his family, so he ignored it. A few years later, he wrote his first produced play, Ivanov. But even though it was a hit, Chekhov considered it a disappointment. In 1895, he wrote his first major dramatic work, The Seagull. It was produced the next year, and it flopped hard. The actors didn't know their lines, the audience booed like crazy. Chekhov ran out of the theater in the middle of the second act and said that he would never write another play. But a writer and theater director named Vladimir Nemirovich Dechenko loved the play and remounted it at the newly founded Moscow Art Theater. Chekhov then wrote 3 more major works, Uncle Vanya, The Three Sisters, and The Cherry Orchard. So what makes these plays so indelible? Well, even though Chekhov's plays are full of incidents, like murders and attempted murders and suicides and attempted suicides and who is gonna pay the mortgage, they're some of the first plays to feel like life. Because here's the thing, Chekhov knew that life doesn't include a lot of climaxes or cliffhangers or neat speeches that explain everything. Most of the time it's just about playing cards or going for a walk or having a late night vodka sesh. He wrote, in life, people do not shoot themselves or hang themselves or fall in love or deliver themselves of clever sayings every minute. They spend most of their time eating, drinking, running after women or men, or talking nonsense. It is therefore necessary that this should be shown on stage. Life on the stage should be as it really is, and the people too should be as they are. This doesn't mean that nothing happens in Chekhov's plays, or that what happens doesn't matter. Plenty happens, and it does matter, but Chekhov was also comfortable writing scenes that are just less eventful, and it's those scenes that have the texture of life. He also meant many of these scenes to be funny, and often fought with his serious-minded directors to make them funnier. He was a master of subtext, a kind of misdirection in which characters can't or won't say what they really mean, but the meaning emerges anyway, around and under and between the lines. Let's take a closer look at Chekhovian realism through his last play, The Cherry Orchard. Help us out, Thought Bubble. Lyuba Ranevskaya has returned home from some years in Paris with a lover. She learns her home, where her son drowned, will be sold at auction. Her neighbor, Lopakin, a former serf, encourages her to chop down the orchard and divide the estate into parcels for middle-class people to build summer homes. Lyuba won't listen. She sees Trofimov, her son's former tutor, who is now a scruffy student. She weeps. Lyuba is out for a walk with her brother Gaev, her daughter Anya, and her adopted daughter Varya, as well as Lopakin and Trofimov. A homeless man stumbles in, and Lyuba gives him all her money, even though Varya says there's barely enough to feed the servants. Anya is impressed by Trofimov's revolutionary talk of a new world and a new life. She sneaks down to the river with him. Lyuba is giving a ball. It is auction day for the orchard, and the family hopes that a rich aunt will rescue them. The guests drink, dance, and squabble until Lopakin comes in and announces the orchard is his. I've bought the estate where my grandfather and my father were slaves, he says, where they weren't even allowed into the kitchen. I'm asleep. It's only a dream, an illusion. Finally, it's time for the family to leave. Lyuba urges Lopakin to propose to Varya. Lopakin promises he will, but he can't bring himself to do it. Instead, he moos at her, and she throws some shoes. The family departs for the train station, not realizing they've left behind the old servant, Fierce. Forgotten Fierce lays down to die, and offstage, the axes bite into the orchard's trees. Timber, thought Bubble. We can see Chekhov's prevalent themes and style, particularly his idea that people are sitting at a table having dinner, that's all, but at the same time their happiness is being created or their lives are being torn apart. So I guess that's not all. That's what the ball scene is about. Another playwright would have staged the auction, but Chekhov fills the act with idle conversation instead. And the mooing scene with Lopakin and Varya is a beautiful example of the power of subtext. If The Cherry Orchard is a realistic drama, it also suggests a move toward symbolism, as do the late plays of Ibsen and Strindberg. The orchard represents more than just the orchard. It's a symbol of an old order. And at several points in the play, a mysterious sound is heard. The sound of a breaking string, dying away, sad. Maybe Chekhov would have moved in a more symbolist or expressionist direction if he'd lived longer, but he didn't. In 1904, a few months after the premiere of The Cherry Orchard, he traveled with his new wife, the actress Olga Nipper, to recuperate at a spa town. He became very ill, and after drinking a glass of champagne as ordered by a doctor, he lay down and died. His body was returned to Moscow in a refrigerated car used to transport oysters. Chekhov will always be associated with the theater that made him famous, the Moscow Art Theater. Theater monopolies had dissolved in 1882, and a lot of new theaters had sprung up to serve a growing urban population, but they staged mostly melodramas. But Nemirovich Danchenko, who we've mentioned, and his partner, famed theater director Konstantin Stanislavski, wanted a theater devoted to realism and naturalism. Stanislavski had been influenced by a visit from the Meiningen troupe, but was less interested in period-appropriate costumes, props, and occasional mumbling realism, and more interested in psychological realism, acting and staging that would make the characters look real, sound real, and feel real. The two men founded the Moscow Art Theater in 1898. Their first play was Alexei Tolstoy's Tsar Fyodor, and later that year they revived Chekhov's Seagull. The play was such a hit that the theater adopted a seagull as its emblem. They began with a group.
Okay, so pretty cool, right? Totally different. Like I said, he's doing his own thing. He's on the other side. He's in Russia, minding his own business, doing his own thing. His short stories are great. They're very funny. There's actually a play, that's not their exit ticket anymore. There's actually a play based on the short stories themselves by Neil Simon, The Good Doctor. And if you think that sort of some of the stuff that you heard is interesting, I believe that there's a version of it on YouTube. And I could I would be able to let you do that. Instead of a musical if you were interested in it. You're just going to have a hard time finding it because of that new, it's like the third result third and the fifth if you look for The Good Doctor play, because there's that new TV show that's called The Good Doctor, right? Okay, I want to take a couple of minutes because we have a little bit of time to answer any questions about the paper and make sure that we all understand the next step. So, before Friday, what are you going to do? Pick a musical. Yes. Now you don't have to watch it before Friday. Yeah. Pick a musical. All right. Watch it over the weekend. Shouldn't be too hard. Pick a musical. Watch it over the weekend. And then next week. So I want all of us to go to Schoology real quick and look at the schedule for next week. Okay. On Tuesday of next week, we're going to have a draft day. The musical playlist is in the RPA or the musical paper thing. Let me share my screen again. Okay, if you go to this folder, 1116 to 1120, right here is, oh wait, that's where you submit your draft. Let me find it really quick. My apologies. I'm going to put it, actually, I'm going to put it in, let me move it. Okay, so now if we go to class content, it's going to be right here at the bottom. How about that? Will that make it easier? So right here at the very bottom, click on that and it has the assignment and it has the list of plays that you can choose from. Okay. Now I know it says the 18th. I'm going to give you till the 19th, right? Thursday the 19th instead. Okay. So you click on this playlist and it's going to give you 158 things to choose from. If you have any questions about finding something, I need you to reach out to me so that I can help you, okay? So you will choose, I want you to come on Friday with your musical, and you're gonna have to put in your exit ticket on Friday what show you're writing about and a link to the version of the show, okay? So you're gonna do that. You're gonna watch it over the weekend. And then next week, on Tuesday, we're going to do a draft day. So either have something already started or you're going to get to work on your draft in class. And I will help you get your papers started. Okay, then you'll have until the 19th at midnight to submit. Now, let's look at the paper again. Please remember there is a word count on this paper. It has to be between 600 and 850 words. That means you can't write less than 600 and you can't write more than 850, okay? Questions, concerns? No, the heading does not count. If you write a paper in Word, do I have anything good in here? Not really. I'll open this one. Okay. If you like open up a thing in Word, it tells you right in the very bottom here, like how many words you've written. And I was told that Google Docs does it too. So make sure that you are writing the correct number of words. All right. If you don't have any questions, please do your exit ticket. It is in Schoology. Let me double check to make sure that it is available. We're going to talk about early American theater on Friday. Okay, yep. So you should be able to go ahead and do your exit ticket. And once you have finished your exit ticket, that is it from me for today, unless you have any questions about the paper. Again, also a reminder, if you have not done the project, if you have not finished it, you should be doing that. Every day that you need to take away from, like you need to work on the project still, is a day that you're taking away from your paper. It's locked. Jeez. Okay, give me a second. I thought that it said that it was available. Okay, refresh and it should work now. You are welcome. So just go ahead and answer those. And then, yep, Friday we will talk about early American theater. And then the last day before Thanksgiving break. Oh no, the last. Then we have draft day next week and then the American musical before Thanksgiving break. And then if you don't have any questions after you finish the exit ticket, you are good to go.
I'm finished my exit ticket.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Ashley. You too. Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye. Good, Ray? Okay. All right. I will talk to you on Friday.